You'll notice if you actually do pay attention to some of the central banking entities like the Bank of England, Bank for International Settlements, World Bank, even you get into the World Economic Forum stuff, all that other stuff, they all start throwing stuff at the wall at the same time. It's almost like they have the same PR firm sitting in the background. What is up, everybody? I hope you guys are all having a fantastic day. I have been trying my best to make a little bit of time to do a video. I know that I'm going to get to the point of doing them daily again. I had this video kind of done about the regulated liability network coming out of the UK on Monday, but I wasn't happy with it. So I'm just going to kind of do a weekend recap here. What's probably going to end up happening is you'll see me stream videos both to Genfinity, which is my company's account, as well as my personal one. I'll try to still make it as agnostic as possible, but a lot of news coming out this week. I think that a lot of kind of this week for me just paints a picture that you can kind of show to people that might not believe that digitization, digital assets, distributed ledger technology are going to be going mainstream. And this really kind of showcases the fact that 100% they are. The groundwork has been laid. The infrastructure is in place. I would argue that we are beyond the kind of infrastructure standpoint. If you know how slow the banking industry moves, how slow traditional finance moves, when you see these things start to be announced and piecemeal, you kind of piecemeal pieces of information together. This was a huge announcement. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are quant haters, quant network haters. If you aren't aware, in a nutshell, what Quant is dealing with Overledger is essentially like interoperability between different networks, traditional networks, as well as crypto networks, as well as interoperability between crypto networks as a whole. This is a huge announcement. I'm going to walk through this just briefly for you guys, and hopefully this paints maybe just a little bit of a picture of where the global financial system is going. But Quant and R3, so R3 probably rings a bell to most people out there. We do know that there was kind of a settlement aspect. R3 holds some XRP. But anyways, Quant and R3 were selected, I think this was Monday, as technology providers for the UK's regulated liability network. Now, the institutions that are a part of this are massive. They're selected as a technology prototype. I love the verbiage here. It's like super safe verbiage, right? But coming from the banking industry, how slow they operate, how slow everybody moves, and how long it really takes to build up that trust and to actually announce things like that. So technology prototype for the experimentation phase of the UK's regulated liability network. This is led by UK Finance and supported by Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young, obviously one of like the big four firms out there, alongside Deloitte and a couple of others. Now, this platform, the regulated liability network, is envisaged as a common platform for innovation. This is like an interoperability platform across multiple forms of money, including existing commercial bank deposits and a shared ledger for tokenized commercial bank deposits. Also, CBDCs are kind of alluded to within this. A collaboration of several stakeholders within the financial services industry. The United Kingdom's regulated liability network explores the options for users to make payments, transact, and settle liabilities in the increasingly digital marketplace of the future. Participants within the RLN in the UK are Barclays, Citi, HSBC, Lloyds Banking Group, MasterCard, NatWest, Nationwide, Santander, Standard Chartered, Virgin Money, and Visa. They're being supported by EY and Linklaters and a technology team of R3, Quant, DXC, and I'm going to mispronounce the last one there. I'm going to get into that maybe just a little bit more here in a second. But I also found this stuff. I think this was Monday or Tuesday. Again, I made a video and then just totally scrapped it. I want you guys to tell me if you see a narrative here, right? So we get that, the regulated liability network prototype. experimentation phase, even though we know how slow these banks move, is now going live in the UK. We've got Quant, obviously, in their interoperability platform. We would think that Overledger is kind of included into that. You've got massive payments and banking giants such as Citi, HSBC, Virgin Money, NatWest, all of these, Lloyd's Banking Group. Now, on the heels of this, you can look across different institutions and see, are we getting maybe a similar narrative here from Bank of England or from Deloitte or from some of these other, ESMA, some of these large stakeholders? Modernizing the trains and rails of UK payments. Now, this is coming out of the Bank of England. I just wanted to highlight one thing within this. All right, so already we have established and this is directly from, this is Sarah Breeden, who's the deputy governor. I think she took over after John Cunliffe left the Bank of England. Modernizing the rails is what this is kind of about. Now, within this, she says, already we have established a new Omnibus account in the current real-time gross settlement system to allow private sector payment systems such as distributed ledger technology to offer settlement in a tokenized representation of central bank money. This is the Bank of England saying that they've already established a new Omnibus account in not the updated real-time gross settlement system aspects that they're working on, in the current real-time gross settlement system that the Bank of England is facilitating. There's an Omnibus account already set up to allow private sector payment systems that use distributed ledger technology to offer settlement in a tokenized representation of central bank money. That's one narrative that we see. This is April 15th. This is all this week. Now you kind of hear there's a regulated liability network white paper. It's pretty dry. You guys can go check it out. It's regulatedliabilitynetwork.org if you want to check this out. I think this is the UK one. You have to make sure that you're being safe here as you're doing the research. There's an RLN initiative in the United States. There's one in the UK. Maybe there's some other ones out there, but all right, so here we go with kind of some more narrative aspects. This is coming out of Deloitte. This is April. This is tokenization, realizing the vision of a future financial ecosystem. This thing's 18 pages long. We can see more narratives here. This is coming out of atlanticcouncil.org. Atlanticcouncil.org is an interesting website to go to for a central bank digital currency tracker. Basically, as a map, you can click on an area or jurisdiction globally. You can see which technology providers might be, well, at least that aren't under NDA, that might be included in certain central bank digital currency or CBDC initiatives. Atlanticcouncil.org is a good resource. They come out with this on April 10th, Standards and Interoperability, the future of the global financial system. And then Regulated Liability Network in the UK, this is just from their site. So I just am always interested in seeing narratives, and you'll notice if you actually do pay attention to some of the central banking entities like the Bank of England, Bank for International Settlements, World Bank, even you get into the World Economic Forum stuff, all that other stuff, they all start throwing stuff at the wall at the same time. It's almost like they have the same PR firm sitting in the background. Anyways, so yeah, we had the Bank of England say that. We saw Deloitte. We saw Future Financial System from Atlantic Council. And then you have Quant kind of sitting here with the regulated liability network aspects in the UK, announced and going live for pilot and experimentation phase alongside banking giants. We know Quant deals in interoperability. We know what Overledger kind of represents as well. Last but not least, on the regulated liability network, it's positioned as a financial market infrastructure, operating a shared ledger. So a shared ledger with central bank money, commercial bank money, and electronic money on the same network. This isn't just like, you get into the M1, M2, all these different aspects of like money and how money is represented globally. This stuff gets pretty interesting. I mean, you want to talk about like trillions and trillions of dollars. I mean, essentially this is kind of on a level playing field with trillions and trillions of dollars, obviously. The regulated liability network is positioned as a financial market infrastructure operating a shared ledger with central bank money, commercial bank money, and electronic money on the same network. You can read what Quant just achieved here in their pilot experimentation phase. If you want to follow somebody on X that still is doing, I I love doing deep dives. I really don't find that I have nearly as much time as I used to. I'm going to try to do some for you guys. I mean, I've got some patents that I've been sitting on for a while that I'm sure you guys could find if you looked. I just haven't had time to do videos around them. And then the connecting the dots type stuff. I always try to do it a little bit more realistically, but it's to really put out a deep dive and to do a video, to do it the right way, it takes hours, like hours and hours of just researching, and then you have to compile it down into a 10-minute whatever and try to get a video across. I'm going to try to do those, but anyways, Tokenizer, at Tokenizer on X. If you do not follow this guy, he is deep into the weeds with all of this stuff, and he will really kind of paint the picture for you. Now, he gets into kind of connecting some of the dots with some of the other initiatives, not just regulated liability networks, but the aspects coming through the Bank for International Settlements, like Project Agora, Bank of Israel, creating a API-based CBDC sandbox inspired by Rosalind, which is another Bank for International Settlements initiative. This guy is doing a ton of deep dives. If you don't follow him, please follow him. I mean, when you think about real deal in this space and actually doing research, this guy's the real deal. He's been doing this for a few years at this point in time, and he does fantastic work. I wanted to also say that we have some really major spaces coming up through Genfinity, which is my company. If you don't follow us on Twitter, please go follow us on Twitter. This is where a lot of my work is going behind the scenes now. It's at Genfinity.io on Twitter. But if you guys remember, some of you OGs that were watching these videos a few years ago, we found Project New Dawn, which I think that they made some changes to some of the graphics at some point, because I had found a graphic with the Federal Reserve on there. But this is Microsoft, this is MTech, this is Hedera. And then also, I don't know if anybody else talked about it before I found it, but I found this document. This is probably a couple of years ago. And I'm just bringing it back up again because we're interviewing MTech next Wednesday. This is this decoding CBDC document, and what this essentially told us is that what's interesting here is that Ripple authored this alongside Prosper US and Hedera. This is probably maybe 2 years old, maybe a little bit older. But what I found interesting in here, number one, it said private ledger for Ripple, but I think we all kind of knew that there was sidechain of the public XRP ledger. That's what it said. I'm literally looking at this for the first time in a couple years. I'm just remembering back. What I found really interesting is that with HCS and Hedera Consensus Service is ISO 20022 interoperable based on it's not just that Hedera Consensus Service is ISO 20022 compatible. It's that MTech's infrastructure, it's MTech's platform meets the criteria for ISO 20022, and they use HCS or Hedera Consensus Service. So, but I don't think that we've seen that. I don't think that we saw that before. I kind of dug that up. Anyways, long story short, Project New Dawn with the Fed, all sorts of things, a digital cash infrastructure for all. We are interviewing Carmel, who is the CEO and founder of MTech, on Wednesday. We also have the CEO and founder of Morgan Creek Capital, Mark Yusko, on Wednesday, right after Carmel. Morgan Creek Capital operates, has $1.5 billion plus assets under management. This guy's certainly tied into some bigwigs within the Bitcoin ecosystem, things like that. Really be interesting to interview him. We are interviewing Dr. Lehman Baird, who is obviously the inventor of the Hashgraph distributed consensus algorithm, co-founder of Hedera. Now he's chief scientist at Swirlds Labs. Alongside, in the same panel, John Woods. John Woods coming as off the back end of chief architect at IOHK, so Cardano. And now he's, for a while, he's been the CTO of Algorand. But I'll be trying to interview Lehman Baird and John Woods simultaneously somehow, and doing some research to be able to do that. I think that we've got some other really good spaces coming up too. I mean, we've been putting out a ton of content. We uniquely got access into an exclusive. We're sponsored by a few layer ones, obviously. So not financial advice. Do your own research, whatever happens along that. But Aleph Zero recently announced OneUSD, which is their first stablecoin on Aleph Zero. We had a unique interview there. So give us a follow. I mean, we're putting out tons of content. You can see our platform here. we're doing tons and tons of work. We've got a whole comprehensive aspect of all the podcasts we've done. We had Deutsche Telekom on L0, National DigiFoundry with Constellation, which is like government initiatives. Department of the Treasury and NASA basically have Stargazer wallets. We did Luxo. This is Fabian Vogelsteller. The guy invented ERC20. We did BitTensor. So we're putting in a ton of work, guys. Would really appreciate some follows here. We also had Siki on, and I saw this. Siki has an event. They're built out on Hedera. They're relaunching 3.0 of their platform. We are sponsored by them through Genfinity, so not financial advice. They don't have a token yet. I think they're launching later this year. But do your own research on all this stuff. But they are dealing with a lot of like really big artists, and this dude was beatboxing at 30,000 feet. So this is Honeycomb. We had him on a space. We're trying to mix in some music with some of the research. They have a live event in Vegas on 420. CQ Royale. If you pull together all the people that they have coming, it's like millions and millions and millions of followers. But they do really amazing live events. They're combining gaming, their platform deals, and royalty streaming. They just did an after party for Wu-Tang like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, which is pretty cool to see. We also have a panel right on the back end of Lehman Baird and John Woods next Thursday with Peak, Borderless Capital, Nexera, and Natix. I invested in Natix, so that's full financial disclosure on my end, and we're sponsored by Nexera, but it's still going to be a really cool panel. We're going to be exploring DPIN, but check out Genfinity.io. I wanted to give, last but not least, I wanted to give Kinetic a shout out on Flare. We also work with them, so not financial advice, but there's an interview of me that their CMO did that we kind of, this is not like a heavy in the weeds crypto interview. We're literally just kind of shooting the shit here in this interview for lack of a better phrasing. And this is Jake from Kinetic. He's been in the Hedera ecosystem for years. He's a really good guy. And yeah, check it out. But anyways, interesting seeing the narratives. If you want deep dives on, and you're on X or Twitter, please give Tokenizer a follow. But I hope that you guys can kind of see what's coming down the pipeline here. Quant and R3 selected as tech providers for the UK's regulated liability network. The same day you have the Bank of England saying that there's an Omnibus account in the current system, the current real-time gross settlement system, that literally allows private sector payment systems using DLT to offer settlement in a tokenized representation of central bank money. And you've got the titling here, modernizing the trains and rails of UK payments. You've got Deloitte saying the same thing. Tokenization, realizing the vision of a future financial... I don't know. I know that this is like, sometimes we just make assumptions where it's like, it's not that big of a deal. People have been saying this forever. And yes, people have been saying this forever, but these institutions have just started saying this stuff. There's been a narrative shift. So when I started doing these videos in 2018 or early 2019, you would never see this stuff. Like, you would see like more negative connotations about crypto, distributed ledger, and blockchain than anything else. And yeah, you could find some deep dive stuff of maybe some trials and X, Y, and Z, but publicly, like these documents, unless you were finding PDFs and stuff like that, you weren't really seeing, real adoption. But it's very apparent now looking back, and we've been saying this the whole time, that all of these trials that were happening in 2015, 2016, 2017, these are like benchmarks leading up to actual go lives of certain things. And I think that should be, an attestament to this Quant R3 announcement, 1,000%. This didn't just randomly happen. They didn't like randomly start interviewing interoperability platforms last week and then make the decision to put out a press release and be like, yeah, you guys are going to be the pilots or the pilot projects of our experimentation phase. This has probably been going on for like years, like 3, 4, 5 years, however long. And now you're starting to kind of see the fruit of some of that labor. And I guess the question for me becomes, I'm assuming it's pretty hard to get in the door with some of these central banking entities. Now, we do know that they test out a lot of things. But when I talk about getting in the door, I mean like building up that trust factor to actually go live with certain things, because there's so much liability for the banking infrastructure and entities to actually go live and put something on a level playing field with traditional money. Like we saw that announcement here saying, or this is from Regulated Liability Network in the UK, saying it's positioned as financial market infrastructure that operates a shared ledger with not only central bank money, not only commercial bank money, Not only electric money individually, but all three combined: electric money, commercial bank money, and central bank money. That stuff takes time to build out, man, and it's like really kind of interesting to start to see these things, kind of go live in parallel. If I had to make an assumption, based on the narrative shifts that we've seen recently, I think that the regulatory lack of clarity for central bank for like stable coins, I think is kind of still a little bit of a hindrance. I think certainly that stuff comes over time, and then this stuff is going to all be operating together. I think CBDCs and tier one nations are still, they're not too far out, but they're, let's say, I wouldn't be surprised within the next couple. I don't know though, because if we go through this crazy bull market, and this isn't financial advice, and then everything crashes, it's going to be a really good narrative to be like, oh, nothing's going to go live, and then the next, a couple of years later, you start seeing things go live. I think the technology and stuff's probably ready. I think the bank deposit backed stablecoin stuff is really interesting to watch, and you might start seeing that stuff play in, because from what I've seen, it has maybe a little bit more clarity than just actual stablecoins like USDC or whatever else it is. At the end of the day, though, this stuff is, you guys have probably watched these old videos. This stuff is already like operating in parallel, like, or has been like privately, and now you're starting to see the public aspects of this stuff being available in parallel to the traditional financial system. And the future is going to be really interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will talk to you when I talk to you. Thanks. Bye.